Ah, yes, the Range Rover, the king of luxury SUVs. Anytime someone feels like they've made it in life, they go out and buy a Range Rover. I haven't made it to that extent, but at least I get to spend a week with it and pretend like I did. Now, the last time I was in one, it was the Big Daddy Range Rover SV that cost over $263,000. And the one that I'm driving here today cost $163,000 less than that one. My name is Omar, and this is the 2023 Range Rover Sport. Let's get in and take it for a spin. You know, driving around in a Range Rover just makes you feel better than everyone else. It gives you this sense of confidence like, look at all these peasants driving around in their not expensive SUVs. I'm better than they are. And you kind of are, because this thing is the king of luxury SUVs when it comes to having one that moves with a lot of confidence, stature, and smoothness. Everything about this just feels extravagant and lavish. And yes, that has a lot to do with the luxury that you have in here, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's more about the way this drives. Now, you can get the new Range Rover Sport in a few different engine choices, including two 6-cylinder versions and one V8, which you can only get with the first edition. The one I'm driving here is the Range Rover Sport Dynamic SE. This one carries a 3-liter turbocharged and supercharged 6-cylinder with a mild hybrid system, giving it a total of 395 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque, because 400 was just too much. That said, this engine is brilliant. The way it just builds up power is extremely smooth, and it just goes. 0 to 60 for this comes in at 5.4 seconds, and that may not be that impressive to some of you out there, but it is to me for something that weighs over 5,000 pounds. But even though this is called the Range Rover Sport, it's not crazy sporty by any means. And that's because Range Rovers aren't meant to be sporty. They're meant to be luxury SUVs that you drive around to show off that you can afford one. I think Matt Watson from CarWow said it best when he said that they should just call this the Range Rover Sportier instead of just Sport. Now, these are also meant to be taken off-road, but I don't know anyone out there that takes a $100,000 plus luxury SUV off the road. They might run over some grass once in a while, but that's really about it. Alright, so now that you know a little bit about the powertrain and how it drives, let's talk about the exterior, the interior, the new tech including this giant touchscreen in the middle, and then I'll also pull over and show you the practicality side of things, since most people will buy this as their daily driver rather than a capable off-roader. But first, let's talk about how much the new Range Rover Sport costs, because it is pretty expensive. While the bigger and more luxurious Range Rover starts at $106,500, the sportier and smaller Range Rover starts at $83,000. Again, the one that I'm driving here is the Dynamic SE, and that starts at $90,000, and if you go for the autobiography, that starts at around $104,000 and can only be had with the plug-in hybrid version. But throw in a few options and my test model here easily crosses the $100,000 mark, and as we go along, I'll point out what added to that price tag. Let's start with the exterior design. Now, Land Rover says that they follow the philosophy of reductive design to elevate the Range Rover Sport. Gotta love that marketing talk. Who actually sits there and writes this stuff? Because if it was me, I would be like, yeah, we made it look simpler and cleaner. So yeah, there you go. But yeah, they're not kidding. Honestly, this thing has a very simple and clean look. Of course, the bigger Range Rover has a lot more presence just because of the sheer size of it, but this one isn't bad. While the outgoing model focused more on sharp angles, the new one here just looks more curvaceous and round. And please, let's give it up for Land Rover for not throwing a massive grille on this. They are definitely out here fighting the hard fight. Every brand out there that tells you that bigger grills help cool the engine, that's all just BS, and they're just making excuses. We all know SUVs out there with 4-cylinder engines with bigger grills than this Range Rover Sport. That said, the exterior design overall just blends into everything. Check out this area where the window meets the door. There isn't a visible seam or molding, it's just body and then straight window. I think that's a really cool look and something that you only see on concept cars. And then you have these hidden door handles that pop out of the body when you unlock it. It looks very clean when it's locked. But I gotta say, if you're a thief and you see one of these hanging out in the parking lot with the door handles popped out, you'll know that it's unlocked and you might just wanna take a peek inside. I don't know. When it comes to the wheel game, the sizes range from 21 to 23 inches. My test model is riding on 23-inch wheels that cost an extra $2,200. Personally, I'm not a fan of the color on these wheels. I would probably get them blacked out. And this color on my test model is pretty nice, but I would get everything murdered out all black like all Range Rover Sport owners do. Other than that, there is some more reductiveness going on here. The headlamps are now simpler than before. I actually really like the previous headlamps. And then from the back, even the taillights have also been reductified to look simpler and cleaner. But I will say that I do like the hidden taillight thing going on in the bigger Range Rover. These aren't bad, but the bigger Range Rover taillights are definitely something that I haven't seen before. Now the reductive design continues inside. This cabin is a very clean and simple place to be. And man, it is freaking comfortable in here. It's more comfortable than my house and my bed. I should probably just sell my house and move in here. Every touch point in here is super high quality and really well put together. You have leather everywhere you can imagine, except right here on the door panel. And that's because for 2023, Land Rover is trying something new called Ultra Fabrics, which is just a fancier way of saying cloth. Cloth in a $100,000 plus Range Rover? Settle down. Before you freak out, this cloth also feels very premium and it gives you the option of having a dual tone interior. Personally, I think it looks really nice. Just don't try to rip it. And don't worry, you can get the cloth replaced with leather if you can't stand having cloth in your Range Rover. By the way, how amazing is this deep garnet and black combo on my test model? Definitely one of my favorite color combos I've seen in recent models that I've tested. It looks super nice when the light hits it right. And then I also have this black veneer trim that costs an extra $410 and it looks really classy. Now you also have some fabric-like material on the dash, and I think Land Rover does this for the 1% of the people that might go off-roading. They might get some mud on it, so it'll be easier to clean. Other than that, comfort-wise, you have these outstanding and extremely plush Windsor leather seats. They have got to be the most comfortable seats in the luxury segment. They are heated as standard, ventilated seats and massaging seats are optional. And I don't have them on my test model here. And if you throw in the cold climate pack for an extra $640, you can keep your hands warm with the heated steering wheel. Now, let's talk tech. You've got this massive 13.1-inch touchscreen display right here in the middle. And we all know Land Rover's previous issues with infotainment systems. It was like they weren't even trying to be good at it. But all of that has finally changed. I gotta say, this is an outstanding system. The graphics, the screen, and the overall performance is really top-notch. And I can't believe I'm saying that about a Land Rover. Of course, you get things like wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You also have a native navigation system for the 2 people out there that still refuse to use Google Maps or Waze or Apple Maps. Getting around the whole system is pretty simple. You have this section right here that will give you access to all the apps that you have in here. You can go into the 4x4 pages and check out all the angles and all that if you ever decide to take this off-roading. You can also hop into the weight sensing app and see how much water you're fording through. This can ford through almost 3 feet of water. And I think the people that buy a Range Rover Sport will only ford through water if there is a flood in their town, not when they're like really going deep into the forest. And then to simplify things even more, you have this quick vehicle settings section here where you can go in and turn off your auto stop start and your brake hold. Now I know some people like that as physical buttons, but I don't mind that here. You can also go in and adjust the ride height of your Range Rover Sport since this has an air suspension. And then if you click this icon, that will take you into the settings section where you can go in and dive deeper and customize other things about your Range Rover Sport. But yeah, overall, this system is definitely one of my favorites in the luxury segment, and it's hard to believe that it's in a Land Rover. Now you also have this 13.7-inch digital gauge cluster display, and just like the center screen, it's also very, very sharp. You have a few display layouts that you can pick from, including a full screen map view, which looks really beautiful. But the focus view is definitely my personal favorite, and you can go in and customize the left and right panel to show whatever information you feel is most important to you. Now, even though most of this interior has been made simpler and cleaned up, you still have some physical buttons. While the whole world is going touchscreen for everything, Land Rover is keeping physical buttons for your most frequently used functions. They don't miss. So no giant grill, and you have a physical volume knob here and a physical drive mode selector. Come on, get out. And it gets even better, you also have physical climate controls, and they are super simple and easy to use. You have these 2 dials here that have multiple functions. You can spin it to change the cabin temperature, and then if you push it, you can turn on and off your heated and cooled seats, and if you pull it, you can adjust the fan speed or put it in automatic mode. And then you also have some quick buttons right here that have haptic feedback. Most people say that they are hard to push. I haven't experienced that. They're very easy to push. But yeah, physical buttons is what I love, and that's what I'm talking about. All right, let's talk driver assist tech. You basically have all the assists and alerts that you can never dream of. You've got adaptive cruise control with lane keep assist and steering assist. You've got blind spot assist, all the parking alerts and automatic parking, traffic sign recognition, rollover stability. But by far, the coolest thing in here is the camera game. Since this is off-road focused, you have a ton of camera angles in here. You have an on-road section that gives you a rear front view, along with a 360 surround view and a 3D view where you can circle around your Range Rover Sport. Now, 90% of the buyers will never use this off-road camera section, but the coolest thing is that this view will actually let you see what you're driving over. That's really cool. And there's not a camera underneath it. It's just taking a future image of the road in front of you and putting it underneath you. So it's some pretty high-tech stuff, and it's really cool. But yeah, really impressed with the camera game. If you want a heads-up display, that will run you extra as a part of the tech package for an extra $1,785. And you also have a rear view camera mirror, which I forgot to take a shot of, but I can see it, you can't, but it looks like every other rear view camera mirror out there. All right, so now that you know a lot more about the Range Rover Sportier, let me pull over and show you the practicality side of things. And of course, let's start off that practicality with the legroom in the second row. Once you get back here, you're working with 37.8 inches of legroom. I'm about 6 foot tall. That is my seating position. As you can see, I still have a good amount of room. It's actually pretty comfortable back here. Now, in terms of amenities, you do have heated seats back here on my test model. You can also get ventilated rear seats. That said, one really cool thing is that you can actually fold and unfold the second row seats right here from the infotainment system. Hop into seat settings and you can hit fold all if you want to maximize your cargo space, and the rear seats will do a little dance and then they will fold down automatically. That's actually pretty convenient, so you don't have to go around to the back to fold down the rear seats if you need more cargo space. And check this out, you can also hop into chauffeur mode and move the passenger seat around if you want to be mean to the person sitting in it and nice to the person sitting behind them. That's actually pretty cool. Now, of course, the luxury in the rear seat here doesn't compare to the Big Daddy Range Rover, but overall, it's a pretty nice place to be. Oh, and of course, you've also got peasant blockers back here. Nice. Now let's check out the cargo space. You can pop open the tailgate by using a button located right down here. And I know I usually give you guys numbers, but I don't think they really matter. But you have tons of space in here, good enough for your big Costco runs. Of course, you also have buttons back here to automatically fold down the second row to open up that cargo space even more. But by far, one of the coolest things back here is this little partition that you have that you can fold up and put items back here that you don't want sliding around. That's actually really convenient. All right, so before I give you my final thoughts on the Range Rover Sport, let me point out a few important daily ownership highlights that I'll have to show all of you. You have 4 cup holders, 2 in the front and 2 in the back right here in the center armrest. Here are the keys, same old Land Rover key. Door close sound from the outside. You don't have soft close doors on a $100,000 plus Range Rover Sport. Kind of a miss there. And door close from the inside. Solid. Charging game wise, you have a wireless charger right here under the screen. That's actually a really cool placement. You've also got a USB-C port under the center console right there. You also have a USB-C and A port hidden under the cup holders. That's cool. Those sitting in the back have 2 USB-C ports and a household outlet. That's pretty cool. And of course, let's do an indicator and horn sound test. I absolutely love the steering wheel. Indicator first. Nice. Now for the horn sound. That's solid. Love it. All right, so how is the new Range Rover Sport to live with on a daily basis, and how is it as a daily driver? It's everything you would imagine a Range Rover Sport to be. It has an extremely comfortable ride quality, and it just glides down the road. Now, I would prefer this with a V8, but living with this 395 horsepower V6 wasn't bad at all. It definitely has more than enough power for your daily needs. One thing I will say that this does have a wafty feel to it. It does move around a lot. It is very smooth, but you do feel the body and the weight. I recently tested the BMW X7 and I have driven the X5 and the GLE, and all of those are a little bit more road friendly and planted. But yeah, while the competition has a more car-like drive, this definitely feels a lot more SUV-ish. And that's understandable because this is a real SUV and an extremely capable one at that. But this definitely soaks up bumps and imperfections on the road a lot better than its competitors. Fuel economy wise, you're averaging a total of 21 miles per gallon combined. You have a massive 23.7 gallon tank, and I'm about to go fill this up after I'm done driving, and that will be painful. I've been driving this around for a couple of days and I'm averaging a total of 16.5 miles per gallon. It's kind of what I expected. Now, of course, you have a bunch of drive modes like all Land Rovers do, a total of 7 drive modes, but most drivers will probably only use 2 or 3, and one of them will definitely be the dynamic mode. Pop it in dynamic mode and hit the gas, and this thing hustles. It moves really nice. There is some fake engine noise being pumped into the cabin here, but overall, it's pretty impressive the way it builds up power and moves. Now, of course, you're not going to be racing with the Range Rover Sport, so this dynamic mode is great for when you're on the highway trying to take over somebody, or if you kind of want to show off your performance for the Range Rover Sportier. By the way, there is a fully electric Range Rover Sport coming in 2024, so I'm definitely looking forward to the performance of that. But yeah, for now, if you're looking at the Range Rover Sport, you're cross-shopping this against the BMW X5, the Mercedes-Benz GLE, and the Porsche Cayenne. Because no one out there considering a Range Rover Sport is like, let me just look at the Acura MDX and the Lexus RX. But yeah, compared to the Germans, this is a pretty solid option. However, it goes without saying that Land Rover does have that dark cloud over them about their reliability. I'm sure they've worked out those kinks, at least some of them, and are getting better. But if I were to honestly get a Range Rover Sport, I would definitely prefer leasing it for a few years instead of buying it brand new off the lot. Nonetheless, the luxury, the pedigree, the reductiveness, and the overall stature of it is definitely unmatched by the competition. Not to mention the interior is absolutely stunning. I know I've been making fun of the whole reductive design philosophy, but this interior is gorgeous and it's really well put together. See, the reason you buy the Range Rover Sport is because you're at a place in your life where you're doing better than somebody who buys or drives an X5 or a Mercedes-Benz GLE. And no matter what dark cloud is hanging above Land Rover, a lot of people out there still prefer this luxury SUV as a badge for their success, which is why this is still the king of luxury SUVs. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Peace. By the way, I love the fact that you still have this traditional Range Rover armrest. I absolutely love this. This is a great place to rest your arm because, you know, those other peasant SUVs don't get an extra armrest. Also, I don't think I mentioned that this cabin is super, super quiet. In this segment, this is probably the quietest cabin that you can have because you're not a peasant.